Welcome to the video slideshow of our Albania vacation that we took. We traveled there to visit our son Sean, who's been living there for about 3 months. We pretty much traveled from the north to the southern parts of Albania, staying on the west side where the terrain is flatter. The east side of the country is very mountainous with very limited roads, and the roads aren't in the very best conditions. So I'll let you look at some pictures here, and then I'll get into some details about our trip. We arrived in Albania at the Tirana airport and then drove to Sean's apartment, which is in Durres. Sean has an apartment that's on the 5th floor of a part of a complex that overlooks the Adriatic Sea. He's got a 180-degree view of the sea there. He gets beautiful sunsets, and he's very close to all of the shopping and restaurants and all the things that you need, that he can just walk around town, not need a car. Things are very accessible for him, and things are no more than 15-20 minutes away. Our first driving adventure took us from Durres to the city of Tirana, where we then went up a cable car, up the Daiti Express, that took us up to the top of a mountain that overlooked the Tirana city area. It was very scenic, a very beautiful day. It was about a 15-minute ride up in the cable car, getting to see the farmlands below and houses, and then get into the mountain areas. It was a very nice scenic ride. We brought the tram back down, and then we went into Tirana to explore. But it's basically like any other giant big city. Lots of buildings, lots of traffic, lots of people. So didn't take a lot of pictures of that because it just looks the same as any other large city. We learned that driving in Albania was going to be a real experience. Pretty much they have signs and stoplights and stop signs, but they really aren't acknowledged. People pretty much just are real aggressive. When you get to a roundabout, it's just whoever has the biggest car or whoever has the most aggression to get in there first. You kind of have to push your way in and out. Traffic is a 2-lane road, really is a 3-lane road. There's lots of things to be aware of in terms of in the city, people walking around you, bicycles, crosswalks, cars that are just coming out of side streets and not stopping. So it was a real experience to drive in the big city, and it kind of helped us to get ready for navigating the country of Albania. Our first driving adventure was to leave Durres and travel up to the northern part of the country to a town called Valmosh, where we spent the night. Along the way, we stopped at various places. The first one here is the Lezha fortress. When we got there, it was early in the day, and the fortress wasn't open. So we decided to walk around the exterior, pretty much going around the entire castle, enjoying all the views from the different directions of the nearby scenery. By the time we were done, the person who came to open up the castle never arrived, so we didn't get to go inside. Next stop was the Mesi bridge, which is about 5 kilometers outside the town of Shkoder. This bridge was built in about 1770, so it puts it around 250 years old. Very beautiful bridge, beautiful scenery, and it was interesting to walk on it to see what it's like to walk on these really rounded, smooth stones. Envision trying to get over that with horse and buggy back in the day. It was just a very nice place to take a break from driving. We started going up into the mountainous area of Albania, heading towards the town of Valmosh. Along the way, we first encountered the Rapshi Serpentine, which is a very steep, windy road that gets you from the top of a mountain down into a valley. Lots of hairpin turns and traversing this steep hillside. Once you get down into the valley, you pretty much travel the valley for a while, going up and down in this ravine, working our way towards the town of Tamara. We arrived in the town of Tamara. It's a very scenic, pretty new construction, kind of a touristy area that they're constructing in the mountains there. Lots of beautiful scenery. There's a little river running through with little waterfalls and just very crystal clear water. Beautiful mountains all around you. Very scenic. It was a nice place to take a break and continue our drive up to our final destination.
Dilapidated fences.
We're on the way to our guest house on this nice road. This is the farm that we spent the night in this valley in Valmosh. There's where she did the cooking. Here's where they live. And then back in the back they have 4 cabins that they rent out. And we rented the one on the right hand side. The valley is covered by mountains all around, almost 360 degrees. It's pretty flat in the valley and very hilly, very, very scenic. We had about an hour worth of daylight left before it got dark. She built a fire for us in the cabin. There's no electricity for heat, and it kept the place pretty warm. When we ate, we had to come back and let the fire go out because it was getting too hot. So she made a nice dinner for us since there's no restaurants that were open. She put together a big spread of food, all homemade. We had baby pig and all kinds of vegetables from her gardens. For breakfast we had potato bread and jams and just a lot of
This is
good
like
food.
a bridge from Indiana Jones movie.
You hear they've had to do some repairs in the middle of it. So don't step on that one.
Okay.
The next morning, we woke up and pretty much backtracked our previous day's travels back to the town of Socotra.
Road hazards.
Driving back through the mountains was different than the day before. It was in the afternoon, and now we got to see it in the morning in different lighting and got to see it in the opposite direction. So even though we were backtracking, it was still just as beautiful to see it at a different time of day in a different direction. We arrived in Shkoder about mid-morning and got to see some of the town and decided to go up and tour the castle that sits above the city. It's called the Shkoder Castle or the Razafa Castle, depending on who you talk to. It's about 500 feet above sea level there and has lots of great views of the city. It's situated between two different rivers. It was a kind of a ruins more than a completed castle. There were some structures still in place and some that were pretty deteriorated. It was over quite a bit of territory, land, so it was kind of fun. Took us probably an hour and a half to walk through it and take in a bunch of the sights. We left Shkoder early in the morning and traversed our way down to the southern portion of Albania to a town called Gjirokaster. Gjirokaster is a picturesque city carved from stone. All the houses have slate on their roofs and the streets are a lot of stones as well. And there's a big castle up on the hill. It's also called the Stone City because of all the stone work that is in this location. The Gjirokaster castle sits atop a hill overlooking the surrounding town. It's a site that continued to operate as a prison up till 1968. It was housed by criminals that the Communist Party wanted to put there that were anti-communist. The castle is well preserved. At some points it almost looks like a museum, and then there's portions of it that are kind of crumbling and old and need some work. So it was kind of a nice change of a castle to see. And again, the scenery and the views from there were just fantastic. We did decide to spend the night in Gjirokaster. We wanted to see and experience the city at night, but as it turned out, being the off season, it was really quite dead, not much nightlife. But it was still beautiful to see it lit up at night and experience it. So the next morning, we are on our way back to Durres, and we decided to make a stop at the city of Berat. And Berat is an old city that was built into the steep hills with terraced homes on the hillsides with no roads that go to these houses, so you have to walk up from the main road to your home, and I'll show you some of that, what it's like for people to have to carry their groceries and belongings up to their homes, something I really wouldn't want to do. We had lunch there and then headed back to Sean's apartment later in the day. This is St. Michael's Church that was built into the side of the hill overlooking the city. We did find the trail that took us up to the top of the hill to reach this church. We got to go inside, and then the views from outside the church looking over the town is also spectacular. Our next car trip was a day trip where we left Durres and drove up to the Cape of Rodon. It was a good way to see some of the countryside north of Durres and get out to this remote area on this cape where there was an old castle right on the sea, basically at sea level. The roads were a little difficult at times to get there, but it was okay. And then we got to see some of these bunkers that were built into the hillside, and you'll also see a bunch of these turrets that were there, but they're also scattered all over the country. They apparently during this dictatorship He decided to build these thinking he was going to be attacked, and he put like 750,000 of these turrets into the countryside. So they're just about everywhere you ever go. You'll see those in a few minutes. The castle was, like I said, right there at sea level, which was pretty interesting, how the water comes right up to it. There was quite a bit of garbage on the shoreline, because it is kind of remote and no one seems to pick it up, but I tried not to get a lot of that in the picture, but it wasn't real attractive there because of that. But the castle was small, very old, kind of deteriorating. Doesn't get a lot of tourism, it looks like. It's quite a walk to get to it. But it was fun and beautiful. Our last car trip was leaving Durres and going up to the town of Kruja, where we then tried to take this highway to the mountains to go to a national park, but had to eventually give up because the roads were deteriorating and the hairpin turns, the lack of guardrails that were busted coming back. It was just kind of a little bit of a scary route to go. We decided not to continue on and have something happen, being it was our last day and we were leaving the next day. Didn't want to have an incident. So we did turn around and come back and then explore the town. The town of Kruja is built high up on the side of a mountain. Has beautiful views from up there. It's quite a large city for being as high in elevation as it is. They've got a little castle there you can take a look at, and there's an old bazaar area for shopping that we kind of walked down through with some neat cobblestones. Had some lunch, some gelato, and then we had to depart to go to the airport where we spent the night and left the next day.